This afternoon, we shall be discussing how automated expense management benefits the finance team. Taking us through this discussion, we'll be looking at first and foremost, what is automated expense management? Why automated expense management? And how automated expense management benefit the finance team? If you pay attention to the highlights I've displayed, you'll be seeing that the key clauses are picked: what, why, and how. So our discussion this afternoon should be taking us through what, why, and how automated expense management. So first, what is automated expense management? When we talk of automation, what do we mean? We are talking about digitization of the processing, the tracking, the approval, and paying for irreversible expenses incurred by employees. So is normal day-to-day activities that are being handled by the finance team in the course of managing expenses, in the course of in line with the company's policy, in line with making a decision, and in line with complying with appropriate regulators, and also having accountability and visibility into the expense. In other words, having full visibility, end-to-end visibility, and that is to say, internalizing the people, processes that are involved in the course of making expenses. That is what we are going to look into today, as in automating the expenses end-to-end. Now we look at why we automate the expenses. First and foremost, look at the pain points of the manual expense management, which requires the use of papers and spreadsheets. In making process inefficient, it also takes time and error prone. Then again, we can also see that poorly managed expense processes can negatively impact the corporate's financial performance. What do we mean by this? In a situation whereby you don't have full visibility, you don't have the accountability, error prone, you don't also have control, especially in large organizations where we have several things happening at the same time, many employees, many are traveling, procurement, everything going on at the same time. It's very difficult to be able to track everything and be able to ascertain your return on investment on these expenses, because expense, as we know, should be a business case, should be a business concern, and not just for making expense. It is expected that at the end of the day, you should be able to do your income analysis to be sure that the expenses that they are making, that they're in line with the company policy, and at the same time, it gives you the adequate return on investment, and that is where the value realization comes in. Now, this takes us to what we look at in automation. Having seen the pain points of the manual processes, it takes time, error prone, it takes so much time, and so much time, you don't have visibility, you cannot account, and most often dealing with human beings too, knowing that human beings, though, that the greatest assets in every organization, at the same time, that the weakest link and the strongest threat. So more often than not, managing human beings is a very big challenge. So most often where we need control, system control seems to be the best in enforcing human beings to align with the company policy. So having said that, let's get down to the automation. What automation tends to do for us. First, we look at how it simplifies the expense reporting process and eliminates errors for the finance team and management. We know that the guys in finance team, they have so much to deal with. But in a situation whereby they have an automated process that will enable them to be able to incorporate all the processes involved in the company's expense management in line with the defined policies and strategy, enable them to be able to be more efficient and productive, and at the same time, fulfills their internal customers' expectations, which are the employees. We also look at how it provides access to real-time insight for visibility and transparency into spending trends. Like I said, that expenses should be a business case, should be a business concern, meaning that for every expense you are making, it's expected that at the end of the day, there should be a return on investment. Rather, that is to say that expense should be seen as an investment that is expected to yield an income. So having an automated process will give you that visibility for tracking, because from the initiation of the expense to the end of the to the retirement of the expense, you have a full visibility and ensure that you're able to align with the policy, and that you are also able to enforce the human beings to align with the company policy. We will move further to look at it, how it gives ability to have all the corporate expense data on a single dashboard. This is where the management decision comes in. Single dashboard whereby you see all the elements that constitute your expenses and what they're going into and how they are being going into and how they are being monitored. It also enables you to track when you're going outside the budget, outside the policy, and you'll do that when you now implement the applicable controls in terms of system authentication, identification, authorization, and accountability. By the time you put all these things on your platform, you'll be able to ensure that you align with the policy. We also look at how you cut down unnecessary spends. More often than not, when you're not able to track your expenses, you find that the employees often may tend to abuse the right. So the way to also cut down on these unnecessary expenses, especially where we have limits, is to automate it for the approval limits, who can approve what, and who can also consume certain amounts. So this slide is not showing us the expense process flow, showing us a typical expense flow for traditional, that is for manual expense flow, and that of automated expense flow. Looking at the traditional expense flow, you can see there that the employees sort of, have more control than even the finance team. You see the processes, these are the manual processes, and this means going from desk to desk or from table to table to present your expense bill or your expense claims. And if we now come down to item 4, where the decision, item 5, where the decision has to be made, that is where the finance team have their major pain points, because they have to manually review all these expense items to be sure that it's in line with their policy before they either reject or assess. Now, looking at the automated flow, then let's look at the flow 3, where we had the decision making too. What happens there is where the business logic comes in, where the policies comes in. So what happens there is where the actual automation comes in, where you incorporate all the applicable policies as defined by the company policies and all the processes, the do's and don'ts and authorizations, who does what and who cannot do what, who can get which, who can approve the expense and who cannot, and who can also benefit from the expense. So the system does the decision. If it passes the company policy, it can allow it and accept, else it will reject it. So in a nutshell, this flow is showing us what a typical expense management does, saving us time and also dealing with the errors, because human errors, system takes care of it. Because for all the identified system company policies, you should have even identified them, configured them into the systems, and system will manage it, unlike a situation where a human being is handling that, which is prone to error and also takes so much time. Then again, you don't have full visibility. Another thing that it also enables us to know when employees are exceeding their limits. With manual process, you may not be able to know that because you don't have visibility into the expenses a particular employee has made. A situation whereby you have an automated process, the system tracks it, you know the employee's limits and what the employee can consume and what he should not be able to consume. So this is a typical of what an automated expense process does for us. Now let's take to the next slide, which is the main topic of discourse: how automated expense management benefits finance team. Finance team, as we know in most organizations, are the ones that manage the expense processes. First and foremost, what is their ideal thing? What do they want? What is the objective? What is their desire? Their desire is to simplify processes and save money. That is it. So therefore, automated expense management provides 3 times visibility into financial data for corporate paid expenses. So with this, it makes the work easier, very easier for them, whereby it has been automated. It's more just on a click of a button, they get their report for decision making. Another thing is faster payment of bills and reimbursement. More often than not, employees, they spend their money, especially when they travel, in the course of doing the company's business. So when it comes to retiring these expenses, if it's manual, it takes time. But for automated expenses, you find out once the employee has spent the money in line with the company's policy, and you log it on the expense portals, which is usually a workflow. It goes through the approval process, and depending on the amount, the approval authority will approve it, and the financing will credit to your account accordingly. The another thing that it eliminates error and fraud. More often than not, employees tend to abuse these expenses, go into certain fraud, even from fraudulent receipts and submit. But with automated expense management system, these errors are eliminated. Frauds are also checked because all the relevant policies are aligned. In summary, you find out that a typical expense management system more of integrating the process and people to be able to achieve the desired goal of the company in terms of expense management policy. Now let's look at the complete and accurate spend data for making business decision. Yes, it provides you an intelligence. You see how you're spending money, what you're spending money for, and where you're spending the money, and who. In a typical organizations, you have a different cadres of employees. You see the set of employees that are spending the most money, what are they spending the money for, where they are spending the money, and the different categories and subheads where your money goes. You find that your monies, are they going into training or into procurement or into entertainment or into party? Enables you to have a visibility, at every time visibility, how, where, who your expenses are going, to also enable you to come back to take decision or to make a review that, to make sure that you are having the right decision and you're making the right expenses. We also look at cost efficiency, burden on time spent, the time they take to in gathering the information, reviewing the information, and also the approving it. Like I said earlier, if we look at the workflow I earlier shared on the traditional expense management, where a human being have to manually review the ticket, sign it, do approval, pass it to the next person. Unlike when you have an automated workflow, once you submit all the applicable documentations and everything, and also system will now edit and process it in line with the policy, adhering and also considering all the applicable policy, whereby one does not make system on its own reject it. Then we also go further to also continue and see how it continues to benefit the finance team. We look at the accountability. Accountability in the sense that you know who does what, when, how, and from where. So at any point in time, it provides you the accountability. Like I said, there are 4 major system controls that with this automated expense management system, at any point in time, you should be able to ascertain the assurance. And what are they? You are talking of identification. You identify who is spending what and what is the person spending. Identification, authentication, authenticating your employees, making sure that unauthorized persons don't log claims into your expense management system. Unlike when you're doing manual, unauthorized persons can formulate a false receipt and submit. But with automated expense management system, it authenticates your staff with all the applicable controls you have put in place. The next is authorization. Who does what? What can you do? Check and balances, a segregation of duty, assets control. So many things are coming into authorization to be sure that the money that is being processed is in line with the policy. Because what authorization actually does is to enforce the actual company policy in terms of expense management system. So it's at the end of the authorization where you define the segregation of duty, implementing the principle of least privilege, who should see what and who should not see. Then again, the accountability, who does what can you do and what can you not do, what time and from where do you do that, and what exactly did you do, At any point in time, you'll be able to generate a report to show you all this. Then we now go down to assurance of improved risk and fraud management. You find out with this system, when you have all your information, you'll be able to manage your risk, know where your risk is going. In terms of your risk treatment, you know the things you will stop, the things you will increase, and you things you have to put additional controls to be able to get human beings to adhere to the company policy. We'll move further to maintenance of flexible and scalable processes. We did this. The finance team can tell you that if for an automated system, that their processes are very scalable and flexible. They can for new policies, you can easily integrate new policies and also easily do away with obsolete policies or policies that the organization does no longer want. We look at the enforcement of corporate expense management policies to human behavior. This is where you use system control to be able to allow human beings to comply with the company policies. Because once it comes to system controls, with the required access controls, to make sure that only the authorized people can do the authorized activities. People that are not authorized to do certain things in the system will not be given the adequate access. So in other words, access should be given on the need-to-do basis, defining different levels of access, management access for approving. You now have operational access, you have the end users access just for logging their expenses. Now for the finance teams that process this thing, they have their own super access that enable them to process the expenses and listen and gives approval for the reimbursement of the employee. We also look at the easier identification and remediation of underlying problems, such as outdated or non-compliance expense policies that employees are still following. We all know that in the course of dealing with human beings, a whole lot of issues come in. So automated system will enable you to be able to articulate this thing, identify this thing on time, and also remediate it, unlike when you're dealing with it manual. So there's always a problem dealing with human beings because that is what we know human beings are, and you cannot change it. The only thing that is there is an ongoing concern. You keep on updating the system to be able to manage the issues as they come on daily basis. Then we also look at better job satisfaction and less frustration for the financing, which is the most important to them, because at the end of the day, they're more productive, working smarter, doing more with little. Unlike when they're doing manual process, they work from morning to night. At the end of the day, you don't achieve much. You don't have improved processes. Efficiency, you are not satisfied with the efficiency. But with automated system, you do more with little and have a more productive work. So going to the next one, we should be seeing in summary and in conclusion, what exactly is the automated system doing for us, and the pains that the manual system is giving us that automated system has come to replace. We look at the manual expenses, the pains for employees and finance team. Also, they're expensive in addition to the cost of erroneous reimbursements. They're expensive in the sense that you require more people to be able to do little job. You require more people, they spend so much time. You require more people to stay in an office. The cost of even paying those people, maintaining the staff, at the end of the day, they come up with less quality job. You also spend time in generating the reports, processing them, rectifying errors, and dealing with fraudulent expenses. These are the pains of manual processes. Despite that you're spending more, at the end of the day, you don't get a quality, you don't have a good quality output. But looking at automated system, we are looking at increased visibility from top to bottom. At management level, they have a dashboard that at any point in time, you have a real-time information for making management decisions. We also look at the reduction of the compliance risk in terms of adhering to the company's policy. We look at the time and money we save, because with automated process, you have less people doing the work that many people have done in the case of a manual process. And at the end of the day, you save much time and have a greater output. Then again, we look that it keeps the finance team more productive and satisfying. And that is the most important thing, because when they have more to do in lesser time, they will be more productive and use the time saved to do more same. In overall, automated process expenses means tracking how employees are spending the money, tracking how the employees are spending the money, monitoring it, and doing everything within a short time and using a system. And another important thing is that also using the tool to be able to do data analytics to be at any point in time to be able to give you the status of your company. So with this, I think I'm coming to an end.